Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at Nuscale Power. It is time for another update, and on this chart we have been tracking a couple of scenarios. So initially, from the all-time low, we have been primarily focusing on this white interpretation where we would have had a wave 1 top here, a wave 2 down here, and we were looking for the next 1-2 setup. This has managed to build it very nicely because it was an impulse we have formed within this wave 1. Yeah, we can easily track it as such. We had a clearly defined area of support we were looking to retrace into, and as long as we were holding this area, we were able to still track continuation to higher prices. Now, in this retracement, we have pushed below the area of support, and the difference is that in the case of this chart compared to, for example, on the Hims and Hers health chart, we recovered here. We had a dip below the area of support, but we had a decent recovery to the upside, to the point that I could actually even track this push as an impulse. Now, does this mean we have survived? Clearly not. We could be forming only an internal correction within this area. In fact, it would be expected even within the yellow scenario that we have started tracking once we dipped below the area of support, where we would have a more significant wave 1 top here. It would still be a 5-wave move to the upside I would be tracking. It would still have an area of support for continuation higher, but in the case of this idea, we would be tracking a zigzag correction where we have an A wave down in a 5-wave structure, and we would be looking for a 3-wave correction, most likely, in a wave B into the area of resistance between the $24 all the way up to the $42.4 level before continuation to the downside. So even within this rather short-term bearish scenario, we would still expect to at least get into the area of resistance. Most of the time, if the pattern is complete, which I would assume it is, after all we have a full count within this area, we would expect to at least get into the area of resistance within a 3-wave pattern. So we have a couple of indications suggesting to us we should be looking for higher prices even within the assumption of the bearish scenario. And probably even I can provide you even another one. Firstly, we didn't get into the area of resistance. Secondly, we formed here within a small time frame, albeit extremely fragile indeed, an initial 5-wave move to the upside. Yeah, we had here actually a more clear explanation of this structure in the previous videos, but this was something like a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, where the wave 4 unfolded as a triangle, yeah, quite nicely. And for the third point, we have significant divergences here, yeah? Even on the daily time frame, we see a divergence here within this structure. We formed a lower low on the chart, we formed a higher low on the RSI. I'm not sure if it's shown on the weekly as well. Yeah, here we don't see it, but I would consider this sufficient to consider this pattern able and to have a decent chance in getting into the area of resistance at the very least. Now, of course, if we manage to break the last level of resistance at the 78.6% retracement in a sustained manner, not what we did here in terms of the 78.6% retracement for the support area, yeah, a dip and a recovery, but if we form a sustained break above the $42.4 level, I would consider that this is much more likely to manage to push in the next wave to the upside. That could be our larger wave 3, yeah, we could be tracking that. We could be looking for a different scenario, for a different count. In the end, we cannot assume the exact pattern that will unfold. And I also want you to remember an additional thing. This doesn't need to be the top even for the yellow interpretation. Even the yellow scenario could have formed a more significant top in this area. And in that case, we would have still reached the levels of support quite nicely, and a more significant bottom could be in place even for this scenario. And to be clear, to have a chance of continuing to higher prices, we actually need to assume that this was just an overshoot part of an expanded flat correction where we have pushed beyond the beginning of the initial wave to the downside, the initial wave A. We had here a push above in the wave B, not a problem. And then we had our wave C unfold within this area. We have been tracking this within our orange interpretation already. And this is a requirement because if I am to consider this to be the top, I have an initial 5-wave move to the downside. I cannot be looking for continuation to higher prices. And honestly, I'm not focusing on continuation to higher prices on this chart anymore, not as long as we stay below the 78.6% retracement and we don't have a more reliable confirmation that a bottom is in place. And you may be wondering, what would a more reliable confirmation look like? So the same way we have within this smaller time frame, an initial 5-wave move to the upside I showed you within this area. If we manage to build it on a larger scale, we form here something like 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th, that would be a confirmation for me. Even if we don't break the area of resistance, I would still be able to look for a high probability area of support, because what we can derive from the Elliott Wave theory is that after an initial 5-wave move to the upside, we expect with high likelihood a 3-wave correction, and then at the very least another 5-wave move to the upside to continue the trend. That is because even though we could be tracking this to be a wave 1, a wave 2, have a 3rd, and then have a 4th and a 5th to continue the pattern, in a correction, in a corrective pattern, all that is needed is just an ABC structure. In this case, we would see a more significant top, but even within corrections, we expect the 3rd wave to form within this area. A wave C would be expected, and let me remove this for a moment because it's a bit crowded, but what I am trying to inform you of, that an ABC pattern and a 1, 2, 3 can be interchangeable. Of course, if we have a wave 3, we can look for a wave 4 correction and then a 5th wave and have another reliable pattern to look for a potential trade setup. But this, the initial 3 waves to the upside, are the likely part of a structure. Yeah, that is why we are always looking for the initial 5-wave pattern. Now, for the case of this chart, we have been tracking here in the smaller time frame. As I was mentioning, the initial 5-wave move to the upside, we were looking for a wave 1 and a wave 2 to form a bottom into the area of support between the $18.7 all the way down to the $15.5 level. As long as we hold here the 78.6% retracement, we can look still for continuation to higher prices. Now, alternatively, if we break below the 78.6% retracement, this would actually imply also a break of the larger area of support in white. Once again, it would actually be a quite strong signal that this structure is going to fail and that we should be watching for a more direct extension to lower prices. Now, of course, in the white interpretation, we are tracking this as a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th that would ideally unfold. If it is to form the wave B in yellow, we are looking instead for an ABC structure, but we would have the same area of support anyway, and we would still be looking for a 5-wave move to the upside to unfold within this area. The wave 3 must be an impulse, but the wave C could also be unfolding as an ending diagonal. Now, in the smaller time frame in the previous videos, we were also looking for potential resistance levels. Now that we have an even further extensions, this would need to be adjusted, but right now I'm focusing more on the internal structure. Yeah, I'm still looking here at the potential ABC pattern to unfold, and there are a couple of options actually within which we could track this. So I could consider this to be instead the wave A down, the wave B up, and have a wave C unfold within this area. In the wave C, I'm looking for a 5-wave structure. So I could consider this to be something like an ending diagonal in a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. In this idea, I would consider this to be an ABC pattern within the wave 3, where in the wave C, we can track here quite clearly an impulse, where I could easily see this extend a little bit lower before I would consider this count as clearly full. I would probably look within this impulse at an ending diagonal within this wave 5 in a 1, 2, 3rd, 4th, and a 5th. The wave C and the wave 5 can form ending diagonal structures. Now, also, we have been looking for a potential 1-2 strap in this area. It looked honestly quite promising, but it did fail. We did have here an early signal, a break below the $19 level. And right now, we will have a smaller time frame count to be able to track this pattern to lower prices. But I want you to remember and to focus on the area of support. Don't overthink the count. I have so many options within which I could track this pattern. I could see this even as a WXY structure. I could be looking for a bottom sooner rather than later. But if you're interested on this chart, we have already a 1-2 setup within, albeit an extremely fragile time frame, but it is also very deep within the larger structure. It is basically just above the last level of support of our larger area in white, we are still expecting ideally continuation to higher prices even within the yellow interpretation. And right now, sure, we can have a small area of resistance to watch for, but I wouldn't be assuming the larger wave 3 would have a bottom in place. Yeah, I won't be looking for the internal area of resistance too much. And here I would be watching the $19.5 level. A break above that would signal to me that a bottom could already be in place within this wave 2. Now, a couple of key levels to sum up everything we should be watching for. Here, above the $19.5 level, we are looking for a potential direct breakout. Below the $15.5 level at the 78.6% retracement in white, we should be strongly prepared for a more direct descent and a failure of this pattern to get us to higher prices. In the large time frame, we are targeting for the bullish structure the 78.6% retracement in yellow, the $42.4 level. Even if we don't get there, but we manage to form an initial 5-wave move to the upside on a larger scale, we also have our confirmation that we are looking for a breakout, that we are looking for an additional 1-2 setup. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.